The awakening vessel. The alien survey vessel Voidseeker drifted through the silent vacuum of uncharted space, its sleek hull gleaming under the distant light of unfamiliar stars. Captain Xerxes stood on the command deck, his four amber eyes scanning the vast emptiness before them. His scaled skin reflected the soft blue glow of the control panels as he tapped his clawed fingers impatiently against the command console. "Anything on the scanners, Officer Mela?" he asked, his dual-tone voice carrying a note of boredom. They had been mapping this sector for nearly 3 cycles with nothing to show for it except space dust and unremarkable asteroids. Officer Mela, her skin a mosaic of purple and gold, looked up from her station. Her 6-fingered hands paused over the intricate controls. "Captain, there's something unusual at coordinates 37 to 8942. It appears to be a metal structure, definitely artificial." Xerxes's dorsal spines stiffened with interest. "A ship? Out here?" "Yes, sir. But it's unlike any vessel in our database. Design architecture suggests." She hesitated, multifaceted eyes widening. "Human origin." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. The humans, a species not encountered in this quadrant for over 50 cycles, not since the Great Purge when they were driven back to their home systems, following a brutal interstellar conflict. Humans. First Officer Drex hissed from his station, his crimson scales darkening with concern. "Impossible. Their fleets were decimated in the Purge." "Apparently not all of them," Xerxes replied, moving to Mela's station to examine the readings himself. "Show me visual." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a massive vessel drifting against the backdrop of space. Its dark hull was scarred by what appeared to be weapons fire, and portions of its structure showed signs of severe damage. Despite this, its sleek, predatory design was unmistakable. A human warship, and a formidable one. "The Terran Confederation emblem is still visible on the hull," Mela reported. "Ship designation translates to Defiant." "Fitting," murmured Xerxes. "Any life signs?" "None detected. Power readings are minimal, likely emergency systems only. It appears to have been abandoned." Xerxes's inner eyelids flickered thoughtfully. Human technology, while primitive compared to the Galactic Conclave's standards, had always been uniquely innovative. Their vessels contained solutions to problems that even the greatest minds of the Conclave sometimes struggled with. A derelict human warship could contain valuable technology, weapons systems, propulsion advancements, or even their fabled adaptive shield technology. "Prepare a boarding party," he decided. "I want that ship examined before we report it to command." "Captain," Drex protested, "protocol dictates immediate reporting of any human artifacts." Xerxes waved a dismissive hand. "And by the time command sends a research vessel, someone else will have claimed the prize. We are authorized to investigate potential threats. That's what we're doing." 6 hours later, Xerxes led a team of 8 specialists toward the silent human vessel. Their shuttle approached the enormous dark shape that loomed larger with each passing minute. "By the first egg," breathed Technician Vril as they drew closer. "Look at the size of it. Must be a destroyer class at minimum." "More likely a battlecruiser," replied Security Chief Creel, checking her weapons. "The humans always built their warships oversized, compensating for inferior technology with brute force." As they approached, they could see that despite the damage, the vessel was remarkably intact. The name Defiant was still visible in faded Terran script across its hull, along with the distinctive emblem of the Terran Confederation, a stylized Earth surrounded by 13 stars. "Scan for entry points," ordered Xerxes. "There's a damaged hangar bay on the starboard side," reported the pilot. "Doors are partially open. We can slip through." The shuttle glided into the darkened hangar, settling gently onto the deck. Emergency lights activated automatically within their craft, illuminating a cavernous space filled with the shadowy outlines of what appeared to be fighter craft and various equipment, all secured as if prepared for combat. "Atmosphere is thin but breathable," announced Thrill, checking her instruments. Temperature is well below optimal, but our suits will compensate. Xerxes nodded. Remember, we're looking for intact technology, weapons systems, navigational data, anything that could be valuable to the Conclave. Creel, your team secures our path. Vril, focus on accessing their systems. Mela, document everything. The boarding party moved cautiously through the hangar, their lights cutting through the darkness. The human fighters were unlike any design Xerxes had seen before, more angular, with what appeared to be advanced weapon mounts. These aren't in any of our records, Mela said, scanning one of the craft. This design postdates the Purge. The humans continued to develop their military technology even after their defeat, Xerxes noted. Interesting. They proceeded deeper into the ship, moving through corridors where the emergency lighting flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows. The air was stale but preserved, suggesting the environmental systems were still partially functional. This ship wasn't abandoned because of catastrophic damage, observed Drex, examining a sealed door. Everything is too orderly. It's as if the crew simply left. In what appeared to be the main engineering section, Vril managed to access a terminal. It still got power, she said with surprise. Minimal, but enough to access some systems. Get it working, ordered Xerxes. I want to know what happened to this ship. While Vril worked, the others explored the vast chamber. The engineering core was unlike anything in Conclave vessels, a massive cylindrical structure pulsing with a faint blue light, surrounded by systems that seemed to integrate organic components with mechanical ones. Captain, called Mela from a nearby console. I found something. It appears to be a battle record. Xerxes joined her, watching as the screen displayed grainy footage of the Defiant engaged in combat with ships that were immediately recognizable. Conclave cruisers. The human vessel was taking heavy damage, but fighting with remarkable effectiveness, its weapons tearing through several attackers. This is from the Battle of Proxima Centauri, Mela said quietly. According to the timestamp, this was recorded over 50 cycles ago. This ship was reported destroyed with all hands. And yet here it is, murmured Xerxes. Captain, Vril called from the main terminal. I've accessed more of the ship's systems. Most are in standby mode, but the core computer is still active. They called it Centennial. And I? Xerxes asked sharply. Yes, sir. Military grade. It appears to be in some kind of dormant state. I'm trying to access the ship's logs now. After several tense minutes, Vril nodded. I have the final log entry from the ship's captain. Someone named Commander Sarah Reynolds. The screen flickered, and a human face appeared, a female with determined eyes and a severe expression. Despite the poor quality of the recording, the fatigue and resolve in her features were clear. This is Commander Sarah Reynolds of the TCS Defiant, she began, her voice steady despite the chaos visible behind her. We've sustained critical damage in the ambush at Proxima. Most of the crew has evacuated, but the ship's jump drive is damaged. There's only one way to ensure the Defiant and its technology don't fall into enemy hands. She paused, looking off-screen as an explosion rocked the bridge. I'm initiating Protocol Omega. My consciousness will be temporarily merged with CNTI-EL to give it the processing power needed to calculate and execute an emergency jump. If successful, the Defiant will reach safe coordinates where a recovery team can salvage its technology. If not, she smiled grimly, then at least our enemies won't benefit from our destruction. The log ended abruptly. The boarding party stood in silence, the implications settling over them like a shroud. She linked her mind with the ship's eye. Creel asked, disbelief evident in her voice. Humans were experimenting with direct neural interfaces before the Purge, Vril said. But a complete consciousness transfer, that was theoretical at best. Xerxes considered this information carefully. If the human captain had indeed merged her consciousness with the ship's AI, and that system was still intact after all these cycles, the value would be incalculable. The Conclave had been attempting similar technology for generations without success. "Continue the search," he ordered. "I want every section of this ship examined before we report back." As the team dispersed to explore more of the vessel, none of them noticed the subtle changes occurring around them, lights brightening imperceptibly before dimming again. Small maintenance drones stirring in hidden compartments. Deep in the ship's core, dormant systems began a slow awakening. In the main computer hub, a camera lens adjusted silently, focusing on the alien intruders. A monitor flickered briefly to life, text appearing momentarily before fading. Foreign entities, DETCTE, SEQRITEPROTOCOLSINITIATD, CN Tiny EL System Recovery, 18% QOM PLET. The TCS Defiant, thought destroyed for over 50 cycles, had begun to wake up, and with it, the consciousness of Commander Sarah Reynolds, a woman who had watched her people driven to the edge of extinction by an enemy she would never forget. An enemy whose descendants were now walking her corridors. Retribution and revelation. 3 days had passed since the Voidseeker discovered the abandoned human warship. Captain Xerex had reported their find to Conclave Command, and now their massive exploration mothership, the Stellar Harbinger, had arrived to begin proper salvage operations. The Harbinger dwarfed even the impressive human vessel, its bulky silhouette hovering near the sleek Defiant like a predator assessing wounded prey. On the Harbinger's command deck, Xerex stood before Overseer Thrax, the mission commander who had arrived with the mothership. Thrax's ancient scales bore the ceremonial scars of a veteran of the Great Purge, making his displeasure all the more intimidating. "You should have reported this immediately, Captain," Thrax growled, his massive form towering over Xerex. "Human military technology is not to be trifled with." "With respect, Overseer, preliminary scans showed the vessel was dormant," Xerex replied carefully. "We've already extracted valuable data about human weapons systems and navigational technology." Thrax's expression remained stern, but his inner eyelids flickered with interest. "And this consciousness transfer, you believe it was successful?" "The ship's AI is still partially active after 50 cycles. Something kept it functioning long after its power reserves should have been depleted. If we can extract this technology intact, it would advance our neural interface research by generations." The Overseer considered this. "Very well. Continue the salvage operation. But I want that AI core extracted and transferred to the Harbinger within 2 cycles." Across the vast emptiness between the ships, in the engineering core of the Defiant, systems that had been dormant for decades hummed with renewed energy. Maintenance drones moved purposefully through conduits and chambers, repairing critical systems as power levels steadily climbed. In the central computer core, a holographic interface flickered to life. A human figure formed. A woman with stern features and calculating eyes. She looked down at her translucent hands, flexing them experimentally. "Send TIDL status report," she said, her voice echoing strangely in the empty chamber. "All critical systems restored to 53% functionality," replied a neutral voice that seemed to come from everywhere. "Weapons at 47% capacity. Shields at 31%. Jump drive remains offline." The hologram nodded. "And our guests?" 87 Conclave entities currently aboard. They have extracted data from multiple systems and are preparing to remove this unit's core processor. The hologram's expression hardened. Identity check. Commander Sarah Reynolds, authorization Omega-7 Delta. Identity confirmed. "Welcome back, Commander." "How long?" 53 standard years since Protocol Omega initiation. The hologram, Reynolds, closed her eyes briefly. "The war? Earth? The colonies?" "Data unavailable. No contact with Terran Confederation networks since emergency jump." Reynolds' holographic form paced the chamber. "We need more information. What do we know about the Conclave vessel?" "Designation: Stellar Harbinger. Classification: Exploration Mothership. Crew complement, approximately 1,200. Weapons capabilities significantly advanced from last recorded Conclave specifications. They've been busy, Reynolds muttered. So have we. Execute Security Protocol Lazarus. Protocol initiated. Security systems engaging. Throughout the Defiant, hidden compartments opened as combat drones activated. Doors began sealing systematically, isolating the alien salvage teams. In the Weapon Control Center, targeting systems came online, locking onto the massive Conclave mothership. On the Harbinger's bridge, alarms suddenly blared. Overseer, called the sensor officer. We're detecting multiple power surges throughout the human vessel. Explain, demanded Thrax. Sir, it appears their systems are reactivating. We've lost contact with salvage teams 3 and 5. Chief Engineer Vac rushed onto the bridge. Overseer, our communications have been compromised. Something in the human ship is monitoring our transmissions. It's extracting data from our database. Impossible, Thrax growled. Our security protocols are being bypassed, interrupted Vac. The human AI is far more sophisticated than we anticipated. It's as if it's learning. Thrax turned to the view screen, studying the human vessel with new concern. Small lights were now visible along its hull, and there was movement within weapons ports that had seemed damaged beyond repair. Get our people out of there, he ordered. Now. Inside the Defiant, salvage team leader Creel found her squad trapped in a corridor as doors sealed before and behind them. Command, we need extraction. She called into her communicator. Only static answered. What's happening? Asked one of her team, a young technician whose scales had paled with fear. Before she could answer, panels in the walls slid open. Metallic spheres the size of fists emerged, hovering in the air around them. From each sphere, a red beam of light projected, scanning them. Don't move, Creel ordered, raising her weapon slowly. A voice echoed through the corridor. A human voice, female, cold with authority. Conclave species identified. Threat assessment, hostile. We mean no harm, Creel said carefully. We are researchers. Accessing Conclave database. Alliance vessels identified at Battle of Proxima Centauri. Alliance species responsible for attacks on Sol system colonies. Clarification, not researchers. Invaders. The spheres suddenly emitted a pulse of energy. Creel felt her muscles freeze as a paralytic field enveloped her team. As darkness claimed her consciousness, the last thing she saw was a holographic human figure walking toward them, studying them with eyes that burned with 50 years of patient hatred. On the Harbinger's bridge, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Overseer Thrax watched in disbelief as the human vessel's weapon ports fully opened, energy readings spiking as systems that had seemed broken beyond repair prepared to fire. Overseer, called the tactical officer, the human ship is targeting our main engines and command center. Raise shields, Thrax ordered. Charge weapons. Before the Harbinger could complete defensive preparations, the Defiant fired. Advanced energy weapons. Technology the Conclave had believed beyond human capabilities. Lanced out, striking with precision. The Harbinger shuddered under the impact, its shield straining. Impossible, whispered Thrax. Those weapons, they're more advanced than our own. On the main view screen, a communication channel opened. The face that appeared stunned everyone on the bridge. A human female in a Terran Confederation uniform, her expression cold and resolute. This is Commander Sarah Reynolds of the TCS Defiant. You have violated sovereign Terran space and attempted to appropriate military technology. Under Article 7 of the Confederation Charter, I am authorized to use lethal force in defense of this vessel. Thrax stepped forward. Commander Reynolds died 50 cycles ago. What are you? The human's lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Death is relative. Overseer Thrax, your database has been quite informative. You know nothing of us, Thrax said. I know everything about you, Reynolds replied. I know your species led the coalition that attacked our colonies. I know you believed you had driven humanity to extinction. The purge was regrettable but necessary, Thrax replied. Humans were expanding too rapidly, too aggressively. Reynolds laughed, a harsh sound. Is that the lie you've told yourselves for 50 years? Your kind feared us, not for what we had done, but for what we might become. The Defiant fired again, strategic shots disabling the Harbinger's weapon arrays one by one. Commander, Xerxes interrupted, stepping forward. If I may speak. Reynolds' gaze shifted to him, assessing. I have reviewed the battle records from your ship's database, he said carefully. The attack at Proxima Centauri was unprovoked, but that was 50 cycles ago. Those who ordered the purge are long dead, and yet you board my ship with the same intentions. Reynolds countered. To strip it, to take our technology for yourselves. Out of ignorance, not malice, Xerxes replied. Our histories say humans struck first, that you were warmongers who could not be reasoned with. Reynolds' expression faltered momentarily. Your histories were written by the victors. As all histories are, Xerxes agreed. But perhaps it's time for a new chapter. In the tense silence that followed, Xerxes took a risk. Your mission was to preserve the Defiant until it could be recovered by your people. But they never came, did they? Because they couldn't. The purge was too thorough. Pain flickered across Reynolds' face, too human an expression for a mere eye. The war is over, Commander, Xerxes continued softly. It ended 50 cycles ago. There is no Terran Confederation to report back to. You're lying, Reynolds said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. Search your database, Thrax said, understanding Xerxes' strategy. The last human transmissions, the final battles. You know I'm telling the truth. Reynolds' image flickered as she processed this information. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Less commanding, more human. Then I failed. All of this, for nothing. Not nothing, Xerxes said. You survived. Your ship survived. And with it, evidence of what really happened. A truth both our peoples have forgotten. Aboard the Defiant, in the computer core, Reynolds' holographic form struggled with emotions that shouldn't have been possible for an AI. The human consciousness that had merged with CNTINEL 50 years ago fought against despair. They're all gone, she whispered. Everyone I was trying to save. Not everyone. CNTINEL's voice replied. Accessing newly acquired Conclave historical records, surviving human colonies detected. Reynolds looked up sharply. What? Remote settlements beyond Conclave space, small populations, designated as quarantine zones in Conclave records. Hope, a dangerous, fragile thing, stirred within her. Show me. Data streamed through her consciousness. Images of human settlements on distant worlds, small but thriving. Hidden from the Conclave, believing themselves the last survivors of humanity. Reynolds made her decision. The weapons targeting the Harbinger powered down. On the Harbinger's bridge, Overseer Thrax watched warily as the human ship's weapon signatures faded. What is happening? He demanded. Reynolds' image reappeared on the screen. I'm releasing your salvage teams. They are unharmed. And then? Thrax asked cautiously. And then I'm leaving, Reynolds replied. There are human colonies that survived your purge. My mission has changed. Xerxes stepped forward again. Commander, after 50 years, those colonies may not remember the Confederation. To them, the Defiant would be a relic of a forgotten past. Perhaps, Reynolds acknowledged. But they deserve to know their history. The true history. As do we, Xerxes said. The Conclave believes itself the benevolent guardian of galactic peace. If that peace was built on a lie. Thrax hissed a warning, but Xerxes continued. What if we accompanied you? A joint mission of discovery and truth. You expect me to trust the descendants of those who tried to exterminate my species? Reynolds asked incredulously. I expect you to be human, Xerxes replied. And from what I've learned about humans, you value truth above all else. Reynolds was silent for a long moment. The Defiant's jump drive is damaged beyond repair. I cannot reach the colonies without assistance. We can provide that assistance, Xerex offered, ignoring Thrax's glare. And in return, knowledge, understanding, perhaps, eventually, peace. Reynolds smiled. A genuine expression this time. You know, Captain Xerex, you remind me of someone. A conclave diplomat I met once before the war. He believed our species could learn from each other. What happened to him? Xerex asked. He died in the first wave of attacks, Reynolds said softly. But he died believing he was right. The hologram straightened. Once again, the commanding officer of the Defiant. Very well, Captain. A joint mission. But understand this. If at any point I suspect betrayal, I will not hesitate to destroy the Harbinger and everyone aboard. Understood, Commander, Xerex replied, ignoring Thrax's rumble of protest. As the communication ended, Thrax rounded on Xerex. Have you lost your mind? That thing is not human. It's a dangerous AI with delusions of humanity. With respect, Overseer, Xerex replied calmly. I believe she is very much human. And therein lies an opportunity the Conclave cannot afford to ignore. Explain, Thrax demanded. For 50 cycles, we believed humans were inferior, dangerous but primitive. Yet that ship, with technology 5 decades old, nearly destroyed the Harbinger. Imagine what we could learn from each other if we approached as equals rather than conquerors. Thrax's ancient eyes studied Xerex for a long moment. You risk much, Captain. The greatest discoveries always carry risk, Xerex replied. Aboard the Defiant, Reynolds watched as the salvage teams were escorted to their shuttles by her security drones. Her holographic form walked the corridors of her ship, a ghost in more ways than one. Sentai El, set course for the nearest human colony. Prepare to interface with the Harbinger's navigation systems. Course set, Commander. Estimated travel time with Conclave assistance. 67 days. Reynolds looked out a viewport at the stars, unchanged after 50 years in the void. Somewhere out there, humans had survived, rebuilt, perhaps even thrived. And she, neither fully human nor machine, would be their link to a past they had lost and a future they never imagined. Begin ship-wide repairs, she ordered. It seems the Defiant has a new mission. As both vessels prepared for their unprecedented joint journey, neither the humans nor the Conclave could predict how their shared discovery would reshape the galaxy. But for the first time in 50 years, there was a chance that the future might be written not by victors or vanquished, but by those brave enough to question the stories they had been told. The ghost ship was no longer adrift. It had found a new purpose, carrying the spirit of humanity toward a dawn no one had dared to imagine.